Hey guys, tonight we wander back to a sun-drenched hill in ancient Greece, where two gods once squabbled over naming rights like jealous siblings, arguing over a shared bedroom. You're standing in the dust, just uphill from the future site of the Parthenon, and the warm breeze carries the sharp scent of time and something faintly briny. There's tension in the air, and it's not just because you forgot sunscreen. Two immortals, Poseidon and Athena, are about to compete for the honor of becoming the city's patron deity. Spoiler, only one brings snacks. You probably won't survive this kind of divine job interview, but thankfully, you're just here to eavesdrop. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk up the gentle slope of the Acropolis, where shimmering heat curls off pale stone. The gods are waiting. Poseidon, the ocean's broodiest uncle, arrives with the confidence of someone who's never lost an argument, mostly because he keeps a trident handy. With a theatrical stomp of his sandal, he strikes the rock, and a salty spring bursts forth. Steam rises. The water smells like a fish market at low tide. The onlookers murmur politely, as though watching a distant relative attempt stand-up comedy. It's an effort. Then comes Athena, calm as ever, clad in bronze and brains. She taps her spear gently to the ground, and up springs something strange, a small, twisty tree with silver-green leaves and a faintly oily scent. An olive tree. Nobody cheers, yet historians still argue whether this myth reflects an actual rivalry between sea traders and land farmers, or if it was just a convenient backstory for local agriculture. Either way, you can tell the locals are thinking, we can press this thing into all right. The judges, mortal kings in floppy robes, nod solemnly. They choose Athena. Poseidon sulks off to go flood something, and the city becomes Athens. You find a stone to sit on, just beneath the still-standing olive tree that supposedly grew from Athena's gift. It's probably not the original, but it feels old. You imagine the roots running deep like stories, like grudges. A cicada buzzes softly nearby. You lean back, wondering just how much trouble a city named after a goddess of wisdom could possibly get into. Poseidon doesn't take rejection well. You follow the grumbling sea god as he sloshes down the hill, each step leaving behind damp footprints and passive-aggressive puddles. The skies darken, not dramatically, just enough to ruin a nice picnic, and thunder grumbles somewhere far off, like a stomach growl after too much cheese. Back at the hilltop, the Athenian citizens are trying not to make eye contact. No one wants to be turned into a squid out of spite. Poseidon, in a final flourish of divine pettiness, swings his trident one more time and carves a dramatic crack through the stone. Out gushes another saltwater spring, this one significantly larger and significantly less useful. The water spurts and hisses, splashing over sandals and soaking togas. You sidestep as a merchant's wooden cart tips over, olives rolling into a briny mess. Poseidon watches, arms crossed, waiting for applause. A few people clap, mostly out of fear. Some ancient authors claim the fountain remained for generations, proof of Poseidon's tantrum and perhaps the earliest known example of municipal water mismanagement. Others say it was all metaphor. Still, you can't help noticing the nearby seagulls look particularly judgmental. Athenians, ever the diplomats, try to smooth things over. They dedicate a small shrine to Poseidon, politely wedged between larger monuments to Athena. It's the classical version of saying, you're still part of the group chat. As you meander through the marketplace below, the consequences of that divine feud are already taking shape. Olive oil merchants haggle loudly. A potter paints Athena onto a vase, spear raised, owl perched. Nearby, a playwright argues that Poseidon should be allowed a comedy festival too. No one agrees. Historians still debate whether these early myths shaped civic identity, or if the myths emerged from the way cities already operated. But here in the dusty shade of marble colonnades, you sense the echo of both ideas: gods influencing mortals, and mortals reshaping the gods to fit their neighborhoods. The sea breeze picks up, teasing at your tunic, and you can still smell that salty fountain behind you. It's a reminder, even when gods lose, they leave watermarks. You pause by a shallow pool in the shadow of the hill. A turtle blinks slowly from the stone rim, and bothered by divine squabbles. You envy it. The thing about olive trees is they're sneaky. You don't realize how important they are until suddenly, everyone's life revolves around them. By the time you wake the next morning and stroll past the agora, olives are everywhere. Pressed into all, mashed into pastes, floating in amphorae, and being haggled over by sunburnt traders with expressive hand gestures. Athena's gift, it turns out, was more than symbolic. It was a grocery list starter pack. You find yourself beneath the same olive tree said to have sprung from her spear tap, its leaves rustling with dry whispers. The bark is gnarled like old knuckles, and bees hover lazily around its tiny white blossoms. The bark is warm from the sun, almost comforting. There's something deeply practical about Athena's choice olive oil for lamps, skin, food, and temple offerings. Poseidon offered seawater. Athena offered salad dressing, skincare, and illumination. No contest. You duck into a nearby workshop, where a potter is shaping a calyx, a wide, shallow drinking cup. He tells you Athena's owl is his favorite motif, big round eyes, tiny beak, radiating wisdom and a little judgment. Keeps the wine honest, he says with a wink. Outside, the city hums with quiet industry. You pass an olive press, where donkeys trudge in lazy circles, turning the wheel. The air smells of fruit, straw, and stone. A girl no older than 10 is scooping oil into tiny clay vessels, hands slick and shining. It's hard to believe this sleepy, sun-dappled scene all started with a divine talent show. Historians still argue whether olive oil was truly introduced to Athens this early or if the myth was retroactively woven to explain its later abundance. Either way, it's become inseparable from Athenian identity. Athena's tree isn't just a symbol, it's a business plan. And what a subtle flex, really. Where Poseidon's spring roared briefly and dried to a trickle, the olive tree simply grew, slowly, quietly, producing generation after generation of bitter little fruits just like politics. As you recline on a warm stone step and nibble on a shockingly dry olive from a street vendor, a nearby speaker steps up to a platform and begins to tell a tale. It's not about gods this time, it's about a murder. The city, it seems, is about to hold its first trial. You shuffle closer to the crowd gathered in the open-air court, an oddly shaped rectangle of packed earth and smooth stones. There are no judges' benches or powdered wigs here, just a few carved seats for the important people, and a larger space where drama is about to unfold. The air is thick with anticipation and distant fig smoke. A man stands in the center, his robes too clean for someone claiming innocence. His name is Orestes, and he's on trial for killing his mother. Yeah, that kind of trial. You settle onto a stone ledge and try not to make eye contact with anyone in a toga. The trial begins, not with gavel bangs or dramatic theme music, but with measured speeches delivered in what can only be described as highly stylized yelling. You lean forward, catching bits of testimony. Orestes says he had no choice. His mother, Clytemnestra, killed his father first. Some people nod. Others frown. This is not your average daytime drama. The trial is held on the Areopagus, a rocky hill once thought to be sacred to Ares, the god of war. Seems fitting. Historians still argue whether this was truly the location of early Athenian homicide trials, or just a poetic embellishment. But the wind-up here certainly makes everything feel more dramatic. Across from you, a bearded orator raises a scroll and declares that Orestes acted in accordance with divine justice. You blink. Divine what now? Turns out, Apollo told Orestes to do it. Literally, the god of light and poetry said, "Yeah, go ahead and avenge your dad." Divine orders make murky legal territory. You can almost hear the philosophical groans from a century's worth of future thinkers. The most uncomfortable part, everyone here is kind of related. Agamemnon, Clytemnestra, Orestes, they're all part of that cursed house of Atreus. If Greek myths were soap operas, this family would get its own time slot and probably a spin-off. Quirky detail, at one point, a priest offers to bring in a sacred chicken to divine the verdict. He's politely declined. As the sun reaches its peak, casting hot shadows across the courtroom, the tension becomes unbearable. The people want resolution. Orestes wants forgiveness. The gods, apparently, want better public relations. You glance toward the back. 3 strange figures stand in the shade, veiled and still. They're the Furies. And they're not happy. You don't notice them at first. Maybe it's the heat, or maybe it's because the Furies are not the sort you meet in daylight. But as the trial wears on, you feel it, that crawling sense that something older, darker, and very, very angry is watching. They stand off to the side in the shadow of a stone pillar, cloaked, veiled, silent. You'd mistake them for mourners if not for the way their heads tilt ever so slightly when someone says murder. That's their specialty. The Furies, or Eumenides, if you want to sound fancy, are the goddesses of vengeance. They don't do forgiveness, they do justice. Old, smoking, bloody justice, the pre-courtroom kind. As Orestes pleads his case, the Furies begin to stir. Their presence is unsettling, like smoke you can't quite see. People shift uncomfortably. A dog starts barking in the distance, then stops. A baby begins to cry, and even its mother looks spooked. You sit very, very still. The Furies accuse Orestes of a grave violation, matricide. Doesn't matter that his mom murdered his dad. In their book, mom still counts. The laws they follow are older than Apollo, older than Zeus, maybe even older than olives. One of them, the tallest, steps forward. Her voice is like wind blowing through bones. You have spilled kindred blood, she says, and we do not forget. Historians still argue whether the Furies were always female or later feminized by storytellers to reflect societal discomfort with maternal guilt. But either way, these spirits are nobody's aunties. And Apollo, he's trying to be helpful. He vouches for Orestes, insisting divine command should override moral horror. But the Furies aren't interested in celestial loopholes. They follow a different code, one that doesn't include forgiveness or heavenly permission slips. They want vengeance, preferably dramatic. Quirky fact, in some versions, the Furies carry whips made of snakes. In others, they simply stare you into madness. Today, thankfully, they're just doing a lot of ominous pacing. You try not to breathe too loudly. The air feels heavy now. Like the city is holding its breath, the gods are at odds. The mortals are stuck in the middle, and nobody's quite sure who's running the Justice Department anymore. One thing's clear, if something doesn't change, the Furies will keep haunting this place, forever. Athena steps into the courtroom, like someone who's been asked to clean up a very dramatic dinner party. She's calm, collected, and unmistakably annoyed. Her bronze armor catches the sunlight, but instead of thunder or fanfare, there's just a thoughtful hum, like someone already drafting a spreadsheet in her mind. You shift on your stone seat as the goddess of wisdom surveys the mess. On one side, Apollo, radiant, musical, extremely sure of himself. On the other, the Furies, gloomy, ancient, and growing more dramatic by the hour. Orestes is somewhere in the middle, visibly sweating. Athena listens to both arguments with the patience of someone who has already predicted everyone's next 5 moves. Apollo makes a poetic case. The Furies hiss. You admire her restraint. And then she does something no one expects. She proposes a jury. 12 citizens. Ordinary Athenians. No gods, no ghosts, no snake whips. Just people. People with opinions and time to spare. It's shockingly democratic for a courtroom full of immortals. Historians still debate whether this moment reflects actual Athenian legal practice, or is more of a mythological allegory for shifting ideas of justice in the 5th century BC. Either way, the idea sticks. The crowd murmurs. A few citizens step forward, clearly unsure what they've volunteered for. One elderly man keeps asking if snacks will be provided. Athena, ever the professional, agrees to preside. But she won't vote unless there's a tie. Let the people judge, she says, with the weary confidence of someone who's been in way too many group projects. Quirky detail, later plays suggest. Athena's invention of the jury wasn't just about justice. It was also her clever way of diffusing angry spirits without smiting them. Smart move. Furies don't respond well to smiting. You glance at the owl now perched above the court. It blinks once, slowly. You can't help but wonder if it's judging the whole process or just trying to stay awake. 12 seats are arranged. The sun dips a little lower. The trial resumes, now with mortal jurors shifting awkwardly in their robes. Democracy has officially entered the mythological chat. You settle in as the 12 freshly appointed jurors fidget on their stone benches. None of them look entirely confident. One scratches his beard like it holds the answers. Another seems preoccupied with a grape stain on his toga. A third keeps looking up at Athena, clearly hoping she just decide everything for them. And then there's the owl. Athena's owl. It flutters down from its perch and lands neatly on the edge of the jury platform. It blinks once, twice. The jurors collectively decide not to question it. After all, who's going to argue with a divine bird? Wearing the expression of a seasoned librarian, the trial continues, but the pace is slower now, more human. Witnesses come forward. Some support Orestes. Some side with the Furies. One man talks for 10 minutes before realizing he's in the wrong trial. Everyone politely pretends not to notice. A hushed tension builds. Every word feels weightier now that the people themselves hold the verdict. The Furies hover just beyond the circle, their veils gently lifting in the wind. You get the impression they're not used to being voted on. It makes them itchy. One juror whispers to another, "Is it worse to kill your mother, or to break a god's order?" The other shrugs. "Depends on the god." Athena watches silently, her gaze faltering. You can tell she's letting the system run, even if it's wobbling a bit like a cart with one square wheel. Historians still argue whether this myth reflects Athens' evolving legal identity or if it was simply a clever narrative to elevate the city's cultural ego. Either way, here it is, the first jury, 12 regular people, and maybe one owl, tasked with solving a problem even the gods couldn't. Quirky side note, one of the jurors, a sandal maker by trade, is rumored to have based an entire sandal style on this courtroom experience. The trial strap didn't catch on. As arguments wind down, the owl lets out a soft hoot. It sounds strangely final. The jurors glance at one another. A few cough. One dozes briefly before being nudged awake. They begin to vote not with raised hands, but by dropping tokens into urns. One urn for guilty, one for not guilty. It's oddly satisfying to watch. Like divine bingo. You hold your breath. The tokens clink quietly as they fall. No one speaks. The Furies lean forward, and then, a tie. The silence is sharp. You can hear someone's sandals scuff against the stone. A goat bleats from somewhere far off. Unaware that cosmic justice now hinges on a single vote. The tally stands even: 6 guilty, 6 not guilty. The Furies hiss in collective disbelief, their forms swirling like smoke about to turn solid. Athena steps forward. She doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't summon lightning. She simply lifts one hand, cool as polished marble, and says, "I cast my vote for acquittal." The words fall gently, but their weight is enormous. You can feel it settle into the stones beneath your feet. And with that, Orestes is free. There's a long pause before anyone reacts. Then Apollo claps, probably too loudly. Orestes looks like someone who's just escaped both death and an extremely uncomfortable family dinner. The jurors exhale in varying degrees of relief and confusion. One of them immediately starts composing a poem about it. It's terrible. But the Furies, the Furies are not amused. They storm the circle, their feet not quite touching the ground. Their voices rise angry, echoing, full of betrayal. "We are ancient," one shrieks. "Older than Olympus," wails another. "We demand respect." You flinch as their fury literally crackles in the air. A vendor's cart tips over. Birds flee. Somewhere, an amphora of wine shatters. Even the owl takes a few cautious hops back. Athena, ever diplomatic, doesn't threaten or scold. She flatters. "You are vital," she says. "Justice cannot exist without fear of consequence. You are protectors of oaths, avengers of wrongs. But this world must change." Historians still debate whether this myth reflects Athens' philosophical struggle between old customs and new civic laws. In the Furies, they see personified tradition, vengeful and inflexible. In Athena, her aggressive structure. And in the trial, a moment where both collide. Quirky moment. One version of the myth says that Athena dropped the sandal during the final speech, and everyone stopped to admire it. Fashion stops for no one, not even divine wrath. Still furious, the goddesses circle the court like thunderclouds, unsure where to strike. You feel it in your chest, a pressure, ancient and animal. This trial may be over, but the consequences still brewing. And yet, Athena's not done. She offers something unexpected, a rebrand. Athena straightens her bronze helmet, approaches the Furies with the grace of someone who's negotiated with titans and toddlers alike. The vengeful spirits swirl around her, all tattered robes and smoky tempers. But Athena doesn't flinch. Instead, she smiles a small, serene smile, the kind that says, I already have a solution, and it involves incense. She begins with compliments. You are ancient, respected, necessary, she says, pacing slowly, voice even. But change does not erase you, it elevates you. The Furies hiss suspiciously, like cats being offered unfamiliar food. You shift slightly in your seat, wondering if this is really going to work. Rebranding millennial-old rage demons seems ambitious. Athena continues. She doesn't suggest they disappear. She suggests they evolve. Become guardians of peace. Accept honor instead of fear. Take your place beneath this city as protectors, not punishers. The Furies pause. The wine stills. And here comes the incense. A priest steps forward nervous, likely underpaid, and begins lighting long, fragrant braids of herbs. The sweet smoke curls up around the Furies like a gentle net. It smells of myrrh, burnt honey, and something you can't quite place, like very old parchment. Athena lifts an olive branch. Literal, of course. Historians still argue whether this moment reflects a real transition in Athenian culture, a move from blood feud to civil law. Some say the myth symbolized Athens taming its own impulses. Others suspect it was just a clever way to explain why there were old shrines under the court. You lean back slightly as the Furies begin to sway. Their shrieks soften to sighs. Their eyes, once burning like coals, now seem tired. They listen, and slowly, they agree. But only on one condition, a new name. Athena grants it. You shall be known as the Eumenides, the kindly ones. She promises offerings, honors, hymns. They nod. Quirky moment. One legend claims that after the transformation, the kindly ones insisted on flower garlands every spring. For the vibe, one supposedly muttered. And just like that, the storm clears. The trial is done. The vengeance gods are now civic deities. The city breathes again. You exhale, too. Athena disappears into the air like a candle blown out, leaving only the faintest scent of olive wood. The sun has dipped low now, spilling amber light across the hills. The jurors have gone home, debating dinner and drama. Orestes has vanished into legend, probably off to process everything in therapy if myths allowed that sort of thing. And you're still here, beneath the fading glow of the Acropolis, with a belly full of olives and a head full of ancient decisions. The Areopagus is quiet, not silent. Nothing in Greece is ever truly silent but soft. Wine rustles the olive leaves above you, and somewhere, a flute plays a sleepy tune. The city exhales. The Furies know. The kindly ones have retreated below, into their new sacred chambers. You can almost hear them humming, low and strange, like lullabies made of thunder softened by time. You walk slowly down the slope, sandals crunching over worn paths. The stones feel warm still, as if holding on to memory. This is a place that remembers things, divine disputes, mortal anxieties, the first courtroom tension. And now, oddly, peace. Historians still debate whether this myth ever influenced real Athenian law, or if it was simply a symbolic tale used to give legal reforms a divine glow-up. Some even say the story was a marketing tool to come to Athens, home of the world's first jury trial and gods who don't explode anymore. You pass a priest lighting tiny oil lamps outside a temple. Each flickers to life with a delicate gloom of gold. One tips slightly in the breeze, and you reach out instinctively to steady it. Funny how fast we learn to protect the flame. Quirky note. Local lore claims that if you sleep near the olive tree, you'll dream of owls, scales, and silent verdicts whispered in languages no longer spoken. You glance back once more. The owl is there again, perched calmly on a column, watching, judging, maybe even smiling, in its own wide-eyed way. And the olive tree, it stands unmoved, steady, quietly thriving, a monument not to war, or gods, or punishment, but to the strange, slow business of trying to be fair. Your pace slows as the sky deepens to velvet, and the last colors of the day soften into quiet blues. The olive leaves above you shimmer like silver coins in the breeze, brushing one another gently in a language older than any courtroom. The air is cooler now, faint with the scent of stone earth, and fading incense. You pass beneath ancient archways, where shadows gather not in menace, but in comfort. Each step you take echoes just once, then vanishes. Time feels stretched, diluted, as if the city itself has decided to speak a little more softly. Somewhere far off, a lyre strums a lazy melody. You picture the kindly ones humming in their cavern, no longer shrieking, just keeping quiet watch over justice as it sleeps. Above them, Athena rests. The owl blinks once more. The last lamp flickers out. You find a bench carved long ago, smooth with centuries of sitting. You settle there, and the stone welcomes your weight without complaint. The stars peek through, and hurried and gentle, and as your eyes begin to close, the trial drifts further away, not erased, but filed carefully in the shelves of myth and moonlight. The gods, the people, the verdict, they soften into something dreamlike, peaceful, measured, as if all of it, at last, has balanced. Sleep comes like Athena's voice, a calm, certain, and cool as olive shade.